Hi, and welcome to the SPNN Forum. I'm Martin Ludden, Executive Director at the St. Paul Neighborhood Network, and this is one of a series of interviews we're conducting on St. Paul's 17 district councils. Our guest today is Karen Groening, who's the board chair of the North End Neighborhood Organization. Karen, welcome to the forum.
Thank you.
So can you start and tell us a little bit about kind of the geographical boundaries and the character of the North End?
Yes, Larpenteur Avenue is the northern boundary. The southern boundary is the Burlington Northern Railroad line. And then we have Dale to the west and 35E to the east.
Cool. So you are the board chair.
I'm the board chair.
Kind of what do you see as your role within the organization, and how does that work?
So kind of oversee what we do as an organization. We adopted a strategic plan a year ago, and so we're working to make sure that that plan is implemented and that we're achieving those goals.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of guiding the organization and our activities around that.
Right. So what goals came out of your strategic plan?
Like most of the district councils, we're working to increase the diversity of our board, of our committees, so that our organization reflects more of the neighborhood. The North End is a wonderfully diverse neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's about 40% Asian, 26% African American, 28% Caucasian, and then everybody else is the rest. So it's a very diverse community.
Yeah.
And so we would like to have more of those voices engaged and involved with what we do.
Are there any particular kind of Asian communities that are concentrated, or that do you have?
Yeah, so we have a large Hmong population, and then we have Karen and Karenni ethnic groups from Burma, and we have Nepali and Bhutanese. More of the East Africans, a lot of Somali are moving into the neighborhood.
And how is that reflected currently in the makeup of the board, or is that something you're working towards?
That's something we're working towards. We have a little bit of diversity, but not nearly enough.
Yeah. And then you said you're also you're doing some really unique stuff to engage youth as well?
Yeah, so a third of our population is 17 years or younger.
Wow.
And so last year we added 2 board positions, are holding 2 seats basically on the board for people 21 or under, 16 to 21.
Yeah.
And then we launched a youth committee this year for 14 to 21.
Okay.
We had a nice little kickoff with the mayor and our elected officials.
Yeah.
So with the North End, it's split between Ward 1 and Ward 5, mostly Ward 5. But so we've done work with Council President Bren Mohn and Council Member Dai-Tao, and Melvin Carter, who used to live on the North End.
Right.
He's been around for helping us out with some things, and Ramsey County Commissioner Tristan Castillo.
Okay. Cool. So what kind of work are the youth doing? You have so you have youth board seats and a youth committee.
Yeah.
What are they working on?
So with the committee, so some of the things they do are they're planning some activities that are centered more around teens at some of our other events. And then they're working on issues that are important to them. And a lot of those issues are the same as our issues.
Yeah.
They're interested in transportation. We had our first youth committee meeting. I think we had 9 kids at that one. And 7 of them had been hit by a car.
Wow.
Crossing, not just North End Street, some university as well, but yeah, so that's a big issue for them. So how can we make it safer? Right. They're also concerned with better bus stops, particularly around the Washington Technology Magnet.
Yep.
They would like to see trash cans. They want just something done about litter, especially around the bus stops. Yeah. So the same kind of issues that a lot of us talk about are things that they talk about. So.
Yeah. That shouldn't be surprising.
It isn't. But it's good to see them care about those same things.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and they care about how their neighborhood looks and how it is to live in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Do you have other committees other than the youth committee?
Yeah. So we have a housing committee, and it's housing and land use, and they're concerned with zoning issues and housing. But we've conducted a couple of housing surveys. We've looked at, it really was members and volunteers walking around one time in the pouring rain, looking at housing stock in different parts of the neighborhood to see if repairs are needed. And there are resources available for homeowners to get places fixed up. And so we're looking for primarily the exterior of the property, and just making notes, and so we could connect people to resources, connect people if they needed help to funding.
Right.
So that was one purpose of that. We have got the new Willow Reserve Habitat for Humanity project going in on Maryland. That's going to be 11 new homes.
Oh, wow.
And then we're going to have a housing forum the end of October, 22nd, I believe, and I'll be at St. Bernard's Parish Hall.
Cool.
Just working on the details today.
Yeah.
So nothing's been decided on that yet.
So you have youth, you have housing and land use.
And
what
we have
else do you have?
transportation, and that committee focuses on making the streets safer for motorists, pedestrians, bikes, everything. And it also in ensuring public transit is sufficient for the needs of our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Almost 20% of the households in the North End do not have a vehicle.
Wow.
So they rely on transit or walking. And so we need to make sure that, one of the issues has been with Metro Transit, maybe cutting some of the service on the 62 line. I believe they made some cuts to the 3 line.
Yep.
But we want to make sure we have adequate public transit for the needs of this neighborhood.
Yeah. So that people can get to jobs and services and all the rest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So who are you working with in the neighborhood? I mean, you are the North End Neighborhood Organization, but who else, business, community partners, who are you working with?
So we work a lot with Parks and Rec. We work with some local business community. We work with organizations like the NeighborWorks on housing issues.
Okay.
This fall, we're launching a roundtable with area nonprofits and other organizations to figure out how we can better work together to make improvements and connections in the North End.
Yeah. And is that one of your kind of key roles as an organization, is to convene and to kind of bring
that is
stakeholders
one of the
together?
roles. Yeah. And in fact, with the youth committee, we worked a lot with parks to identify kids who might be engaged with parks in the schools, and we do work along those lines. Yes.
Yeah, nice. What's what are your hot issues right now? What are your residents bringing to you? What are your biggest things that you're working on?
So, there's a lot of things. So housing is part of it. Transportation is part of it. We've had a couple of issues around some hot spots with crime, and we've had some events this summer, some pop-up events with our Safe Neighborhood Committee, which is another one of our committees. Little pop-up cookouts with the St. Paul Police Department's community engagement.
Okay.
And we've done some just little friendly gatherings with neighbors that way to build connections. And back to the committees, we also have Friends of the North End, which does kind of placemaking and those types of activities. So, yeah. But housing is a big issue. We're also looking at rental forums, renters' rights forums, having some discussions around that.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Do you know kind of how many folks in the North End are renting versus owning?
I want to say it's around 48%, but I'm not sure. The numbers have shifted.
Yeah.
So when I first moved to the neighborhood, it might be 60% renters.
Oh, wow.
It shifted after the recession.
Okay. Right.
So it was primarily homeowners, and then a lot of the housing market collapse hit a lot of people in the North End. So that's an issue.
So what role are you playing with renters' rights? Kind of what's your nexus there?
And we actually had a landlord forum recently as well. But I went to, in the course of putting together the strategic plan, I attended a session with immigrants and refugees, and they talked about issues they've had with housing and landlords not being responsive. And so helping them connect with tenants' rights organizations in Minnesota was one of the things that we want to do. Let them know that they can ask for help. When you come with a refugee population, they have experiences back home, and then maybe they're less reluctant, or they're afraid of being put out of housing if they complain.
Yep.
So, or if the conditions are bad, they may lose the home. So they don't necessarily want to make waves.
Yeah.
So they put up with things that maybe you or I wouldn't.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's that inherent power imbalance that happens to begin with, and then you throw on top of that your housing at stake.
Yeah.
So and so what are you working with on the landlord side then? What does that look like?
Well, just kind of letting the landlords know what the requirements are, what they need to do, those types of things.
So making sure that both sides are fulfilling their kind of obligations and know what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
So,
Cool.
One of the things that we do is kind of connect residents, and that can be businesses and that with other organizations or with the city, and help them navigate, especially when dealing with the city, help them navigate through the process.
Yeah. And do you, when you're trying to be responsive to your community, are those Are you being responsive through your board members, or are they coming straight to the organization, or how are you feeling what's going on?
So there's a couple of different ways. I mean, some things come directly to our organization through our executive director or whatever. We hear about issues. And then sometimes the board members are approached because we live in the neighborhood.
Yep.
We have our board is our neighborhood organizations. Our board members come from 4 different quadrants.
Okay.
And each quadrant has 4 representatives. And so, I can be out walking around the neighborhood and
Right.
with my dogs, and somebody will stop and talk to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And do people know who you guys are?
Some.
Yeah.
But that's part of the issue. I know
Yeah.
we have the Rice Larpenter Alliance had a block party on Saturday, and I spoke to a lot of people about the district council and
Yeah.
getting involved and what our committees do, and inviting them to come check us out, to get involved, to make their voices heard,
Yeah.
because that's important.
Right. Well, and
So-
that's how you get a broader
Yeah.
section of people
Yeah.
in. So you're 4 representatives from each quadrant. What's the election cycle? How long is a term?
So a term is 2 years.
Okay.
The election, we have an annual meeting in April.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have like the youth position is 1 year.
Okay.
And then we have we can have 2 appointed from the business or organizations within the North End.
Okay.
And then periodically to fill vacancies, we have, I want to say quarterly elections to fill open spots.
Okay.
So,
And can anyone, as long as you live in the quadrant, you can
yeah,
run?
yeah,
Cool.
it's that easy.
Yeah. No other requirements?
No, just have to live there.
Right on. And how about committee participation? What does that look like? Do you just show up, or do you have to?
just show up, yeah. And
Okay.
if you want to join, you can just attend as a member of the public, or you can join a committee, and that's pretty easy to do. You just come.
Do you have to attend a certain number of meetings to become a
Usually,
voting member?
most people attend a few meetings.
Okay.
You want to at least figure out what's going on
Right.
before you jump in.
Before you start voting on things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have any, what's coming up for North End as far as events?
So we have the Marydale Festival, which is our big festival on September 28th from noon to 5. That's an arts festival. We have local artists that are selling stuff. We have food trucks. We have music. We have lots of activities for kids. We have a new coffee shop in the North End.
Oh, cool.
Real Life Coffee and Yoga on Rice Street. And they're going to do yoga at the Marydale Festival. And we're going to have a beer garden.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's a growing event. It's this is the 4th year.
Okay. And where's the event
So
happening?
Marydale Park
Okay.
is at Maryland and Dale. It's a little south of the intersection, but so if you know where Connie's Creamy Cone is, we're kind of
Yes,
diagonal
I
across
do,
from that.
actually.
So it's in that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So say the date of that again.
September 28th, Saturday, noon to 5.
Cool. At Marydale
So
Park.
Marydale Park.
What else do you have going on?
So we have a couple of tours we're planning for Willow Reserve. One of those will be conducted in Karen language for our Karen residents.
Yeah.
Willow Reserve is one of our hidden gems in the North End. It's an area that the Capital Regional Watershed has been working to do some restoration. But Willow Reserve, along with the Trout Brook Nature Sanctuary, are 2 places you can go in the North End and forget you're in the major metropolitan area.
Yeah.
You can just totally forget. You get birds flying over, you get frogs, and all that, and yeah, totally.
Yeah, there are a few places like that in the Twin Cities, but I think most folks maybe don't know that there are 2 of them right there in the North End. So
Yeah.
where is Trout Brook?
So Trout Brook, it has a parking lot at Jackson and Maryland. It's got a nice big sign, you can't miss it.
Yeah.
And there's a little building there with facilities. But yeah, there's a path through there, walkway, and it's nice. You get some wildflowers and all that. So,
And some
yeah.
wildlife right there?
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
And then where's Willow Reserve?
So Willow Reserve is a little more hidden, and
Okay.
it's still the restoration work's still being done, so there's not really a lot of signage.
Okay.
But it's for Arundel, north of Maryland, basically. I think it's 1260 Arundel.
Okay.
So it's just north of Maryland. They're right behind where they're putting in the Habitat for Humanity development.
Nice. So that'll be a nice amenity for those houses too.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. To be able to walk out your back door and.
And it's wetlands, so you've
Yeah.
got different birds. It's on the migratory birds use of that area, so it's a nice place to
Nice.
walk.
And where can, so how can people get involved?
you can show up
Yeah.
at any of our events. We have events listed on our Facebook page. We have events listed on our website at Neno St. Paul. So it's NENOSTPAUL.org. And then, yeah, just come. We have our meetings listed. Our calendars out there. Our meetings are listed.
Do you have
Events
a
are
regular
listed.
meeting cadence?
Yeah. So our well, we do, but sometimes like we for our board meetings are the first Monday of the month, but
Okay.
like September is Labor Day, so we've
Right.
rescheduled the meeting.
Yep.
So, and then we have Friends of the North End, and our transportation committee meetings are the second Monday of the month, and we meet. Those meetings are at the Rice Street Library. Our board meeting is at the Rice Rec Center.
Okay.
Our land use meeting is at the end of the month. So all those dates are on the schedule. And
Okay.
occasionally if some meetings canceled for some whatever reason, then that's on the schedule as well. We put that out there.
Right.
We also have a couple other events. So the Willow Reserve tours are scheduled for September 14th and 23rd.
Okay.
We have a What's Happening in the North End event on November 14th. And
Cool.
that's where we bring together organizations that work in the North End, some of the nonprofits, as well as Parks and Rec, and our elected officials come and tell the community what they're working on or what's going on in the North End.
Yeah.
And then we're planning an open house for early December with the district council.
And is that the open house at your physical
It'll be
location?
at our location.
And where is that?
On Front.
Okay.
Front in Albemarle.
Cool.
So the other thing that I didn't mention as far as things that we do is with the North End Development Team, which
Yeah.
includes members of the North End Neighborhood Organization and our elected officials, as well as some other representatives. We've allocated over $640,000 to North End businesses for interior and exterior improvements since
Oh, wow.
2015. And we've got more funding available. So we're trying to, whether it's signage,
Right.
La Chiqui's grocery has got a new sign and
Okay.
some of those things. Some money went into Real Life Yoga to get that space
Yeah.
fixed up. And just some of the other businesses getting signs, facade improvement, those types
Yeah.
of things.
And where does that funding come from?
Some of it comes from the city's STAR grants.
Yep.
So
And how do those businesses, do they access that through the STAR program, or do they access that through?
they access it
Neno?
through the North End Development Team, which is,
Okay.
like I said, we
Right.
have members on that development team.
Yeah, and so that goes, local small business.
Yes.
What kind of, interior upgrades?
Well, it's the idea is it's stuff that if they were to relocate, they wouldn't be able to take.
Right.
So maybe
we're
the
not going
HVAC
to buy you an
system,
espresso machine,
yeah.
but yeah.
But we may help with a leaky roof
Yep.
or a parking lot issue, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just ways to incentivize business to stay. And to develop and invest.
Develop, invest, and help them prosper. And one of the other things that we're looking to fill a temporary, more like an intern type position, but a temporary part-time position for a business survey that we want to do this year.
Okay.
Where we're looking for someone that can go talk to the local businesses
Yep.
to figure out issues that they have, that needs and ways to improve, ideas for improving the business climate in the North End, with an eye for development and prosperity, more
Yeah.
prosperity for the neighborhood.
So that would be a part-time role. What else? What other staff does Neno have?
So this year we added, or late last year, we added a community outreach person.
Okay.
So we have Jubilee who speaks Karen,
Nice.
and so she can help us engage more within the Karen community.
Yeah. So you have community outreach, and then.
And then we have an executive director.
Okay.
So,
Wow. Small but mighty.
so, yes.
Yeah. What's the how big is do you know what the population is for the neighborhood?
About 23,500.
Wow. Okay. So
So,
you've got
We're the third largest neighborhood.
third largest neighborhood in St. Paul,
Yeah.
and you have
A handful
almost
of
two
people.
staff
Almost.
and some hardy volunteers.
Yes. Yeah.
Doing-
And we're always looking for more volunteers. We could
Yeah.
do more if we had more volunteers.
Right.
So yeah.
So speaking of, where do you need volunteers right now, other than committees and as actual representatives?
Well, a lot of our work is the committees. The
Yep.
committees do a lot of things, and we do. I mean, we need help with the Marydale Festival. We
Yep.
need help getting it set up, getting it things put on.
Right.
But yeah, any of the activities we have a garden, a rain garden that we kind of maintain at the corner of Rice and Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
We've got weeding opportunity scheduled for Saturday. Saturday morning.
Yes.
It's starting to kick off. We planned this a few years ago, and it's really the wildflowers have really started to take
Yeah.
off. But we need to touch it up a little bit, do a little weeding. So we're having a weeding party on Saturday morning. We've been doing this a couple of times over the summer.
Is this like okay, so this isn't an every Saturday morning meeting?
No. This was used to be a bar there, I believe, and then when they widened the intersection, the building came down. There wasn't enough room for anything else to go there, so it just kind of sat as a vacant lot for years, and discussion was made about can we do this?
Yeah.
And then we're not sure what the long-term prospect of what else they're going to do at that intersection. There's still a few accidents there, so they may make some more improvements in that area.
Okay.
But
a rain garden, I mean, neighborhood beautification.
well, it looks really nice. I mean, the wildflowers have finally taken off. You've got daisies and coneflower, and so you got this little splash of color at the intersection. So it looks nice.
Well, and it seems like another splash of nature in in an otherwise urban area is always a good thing.
Yeah. So a lot of little things like that. But it's just, there's little ways you can help, depending on how much time you have available. There's always something to do.
Right.
So and the board of directors and our committee members, we're all volunteers.
Yeah.
So.
And you are a volunteer. You are new-ish to the neighborhood as well?
15 years is new.
Okay. Well, this is St. Paul.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
And where did you come from?
I've come from Dayton, Ohio.
Okay. And how did you get involved?
Well, we have these events. The neighborhood has these events. They're not district council events, but the neighborhood has socials. And I went to a social 3 years ago, and one of the board members was organizing these and started talking about the district council and what they did, and some of us from the socials attended the meetings and decided to get involved.
Awesome.
So the socials are a great way to get to know people in the neighborhood. I had lived in the neighborhood for 12 years. I knew my immediate neighbors, and that was it.
Right.
And now,
Yeah, like the people on either side and like across and behind.
Not even the ones behind, because they kept changing. It's a rental property behind me, and I didn't know them.
Yeah.
But no, we have these little pop-up events in somebody's front yard, and we'll even yell at people passing by to come join us. It's a nice little way to build community. And really, that's kind of what we do with the district council. It's about building community. So.
Yeah, building community and getting to know your neighbors and figuring out what needs to be done and getting it done, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's it at the core.
Well, thank you for your time, and thanks for the work you're doing to make your community and St. Paul better.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the SPNN Forum. Our guest today has been Karen Groening from the North End Neighborhood Organization. For more information, you can go to www.nenostpaul.org. Thanks for tuning in.